about Americans that I learned when I came home and checked my inbox for my latest videos is Americans have a thing about hats, which is why I'm not wearing my trademark black hat. I'm not wearing my black hat because people hate when my hat is not on correctly. They just can't stand it. There's something about a kid that has a little bit of swag in his hat. You know, the way I wear my hat, forward or backward, is just with a little crook. And people are bugging the fuck out. I mean, people are really bothering me. And they even went as far as to say something like this. They said, "You effing queer, put your hat on. You look like a black man." But he didn't use the, you know, this guy's not as nice as me. And I took it down immediately and paid him no mind. But you know, if people have that much of a problem with me wearing my hat with a slight crook, they're really going to have a problem. I mean, what they're even doing, watching my videos and MMA vlogs in the first place, is fucking beyond me. I mean, it's just my words. You know, regardless. Today, I'm sporting this. I'm rocking it for the next week straight. Yep. I'm going stanky. Straight up stanky. I'm ready to see a Diaz brother get back into action. But today I don't have any real happy news. Diaz brother's still up in the air. Nate's moving up to welterweight, where I don't like him in welterweight. I think Nate is his body's sound, is perfectly sound for lightweight, for 155. I think he looks perfect. I think he dominates at 155 when he's on his game, when he's on his A game. I think, if you add some kicks and takedowns into his repertoire, he's unstoppable. But moving on, I got some sad news today. A statement was released today regarding Stefan Struve and his heart condition. Stefan Struve does have a very bad heart condition, a devastating heart condition, and he is no longer fighting for the UFC. He's suspended indefinitely because of the health problems, and I'm just going to reroute the phone. Tuesday night's episode of UFC Tonight, it was announced that Stefan Struve is diagnosed with a leaky aortic valve. But anyway, normally I don't like to be the bearer of bad news. I don't like to do bad news videos. I really don't. This, however, is definitely newsworthy, and that's my job. News and updates is my job, so I'm going to give it to you. And it's a statement regarding Stefan Struve's heart condition. Stefan Struve is no longer on the UFC roster. You might know Stefan Struve, if you're even a casual UFC fan. He'll be the guy that's 6'11", 246 pounds, and lanky. Freakish little fun fact here is he is 6'11" tall, weighs 246 pounds. John Jones is 6'4", 6'6", something like that, fights at 205 pounds, still has a reach advantage over Stefan Struve. Stefan Struve has an 82 reach and 82-inch reach. John Jones, a freakish 84 and a half. Moving on, Tuesday night's episode of UFC Tonight was announced Stefan Struve had some sort of problem with his heart, and that he may be released from the UFC. It turns out that his aortic valve was leaking, as well as an enlarged heart. And you know what? People that big, they always end up getting some sort of health issue later on in life, whether it be the gland. Shit, I can't remember. The pituitary gland. The pituitary gland usually gives out. It could be a series of things, but Andre the Giant, passed away at an early age because he was big. The guy that played Herman Munster for the Munsters, he was in bad health for a long time, and Stefan Struve, he's still waiting to see if he'll ever be able to resume his UFC career. This could sideline him for good. This could be the Brock Lesnar disease that just, completely takes it away. Which is terrible because he never really reached the pinnacle of his career. I don't think he's even at his prime yet. He gets better with every fight. I love watching him fight. He's by far taller. I think the octagon walls are 7 foot, and he's damn close. He's a couple inches, over the top. and it's always fun to watch him. He has great technique, great striking, and fantastic ground game to go with it. Solid takedowns, solid knees. Great fighter. Just in a very unfortunate situation. But below is a detailed statement from Struve's manager about his condition and his future, and it says that Struve has recently been diagnosed with a leaking aortic valve and an enlarged heart, and was hospitalized for a week to undergo surgery. To determine the best course of treatment is what they're looking for, the best way, the fastest way to fix this problem. The doctors found that Stefan Struve actually has a bicuspid aortic valve, which means that his aortic valve only has 2 leaflets instead of 3. So, sounds pretty grave to me. I certainly wouldn't want to have that problem. That's something that probably most everyone would not want to hear from their doctor. The aortic valve regulates blood flow from the heart to the aorta, and the major blood vessel that brings blood to the body. In combination with enlarged heart, it causes his heart to only pump 70% of the blood into his aorta and then the rest of his body, and the remaining 30% ends up back into the heart chamber. After consulting experts, he went to both Holland and the United States to get a second opinion. He really didn't want to have this, stop fighting, stop training. Can't kickbox, can't do anything, can't grapple, can't do anything. This guy is pretty much stuck. And he's still a young kid. Stefan Struve is a young man. He's a young fighter, and again, he's not even in his prime yet. I don't believe so, anyway. He did get a second opinion, Holland, then the United States. It was decided they're going to treat the condition the next 2 months, and assess the effectiveness of the treatment protocol. After those 2 months, the doctors will have an answer on what the best treatment options are. At the direction of the doctor, Stefan Struve has been released from the hospital and has resumed light cardiovascular exercises, but fully appreciates the significance of the condition he's been diagnosed with. I'm sorry, I got caught up in reading it. He appreciates the significance of the condition he's been diagnosed with. However, he's optimistic about the eventual outcome, and plans to make a full, long, active, healthy life, and eventually return to competition in the octagon for his quest to become UFC Heavyweight Champion. Stefan Struve loves the UFC and plans on being involved with the company as a fighter and ambassador for years to come. Stefan wants to thank all of the fans who have supported him thus far in his career, as well as the UFC, Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta, Joe Silva, and it goes on for a while with some names that no one cares about, and that's pretty much it. And Stefan Struve is going to have to go through some serious adversity if he wants to. But what it sounds like to me is he's going to have to make some sort of miraculous comeback. We saw Brock Lesnar with the gastrointestinal system, or whatever was wrong with his stomach, or whatever was wrong with his insides, and he came back. And he said he was 100%. The doctor said he was 100%. There was no problems. This guy's going to fight better than ever. And he took 1, 2, 3 knees from Alistair Overeem, and fucking retired from the sport. Just fucking up and left. He said he's never been kicked that hard. He felt like he got kicked by a mule or a horse. He's never felt pain like that in his life. Brock Lesnar was never the same. He lost his belt to Cain Velasquez. Given this, a little bit of dark news, some good news would maybe brighten this up a little bit. Good news is, buddy pals, the Canadians. Damn Canadians. People say they hate Brazilians. They don't like Brazilians. And fucking Brazilians. Fucking Brazilians. Well, I love Brazilians. I think they're awesome, especially the way they talk. The way they talk is incredible. And I love how post-fight press conferences and pre-fight press conferences, even the ones that speak English, they choose to answer the fucking questions in Portuguese, so they have to use it. So how it has to happen is the reporter has to ask the fighter a question. The fighter then has to answer it in Portuguese. After he's done babbling on in Portuguese, he turns to his translator. The translator turns to him, listens, and then spits it out in English. and then round and round we go. So one question takes about fucking 7-8 minutes to get through. It's a pain in the ass, but I love Brazilian fighters. They're killers, man. I mean, look at Jose Aldo, killer. Lyoto Machida, killer. Anderson Silva, killer. Vitor Belfort, killer. Guani, killer. Shogun, killer. You know, I'm a huge fan of all the guys I listed above. But then you got the cute couple of Rory, Aries, MacDonald. I'm still calling him Waterboy because I don't like him. The Waterboy and the Golden Boy, GSP, are going to be placed on the same card. Yes, they're going to be placed on UFC 167's card. They'll probably be, Rory MacDonald will probably be the co-main event, but unfortunately for him, and I am super optimistic about this, especially the way this guy's been looking lately, he's fighting fucking Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler, in case no one knows, is a long-time veteran of MMA. He's been around for as long as the sport has. He started out the Militich fighting systems. I believe he's at AKA now, or ATT. I'm not quite sure. It's one of the two, though. I know that. I know he's in Florida. And this guy has been showing up in the octagon. His last performance, I think, was his best performance to date. This guy has knockout wins over Melvin Manhoff. He fought Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz, basically, he made Nick's career. He was a huge underdog, Nick. Coming into this bout with Robbie Lawler, this up-and-coming striker from the Militich camp. And Nick, was known as a purely just jiu-jitsu fighter. So it was assumed on paper that Nick was going to look for the takedown and a submission, and Robbie was going to look to keep it on his feet. Robbie, having a wrestling background, was going to have an easy time keeping, stuffing Nick's takedowns, keeping it on the feet, and eventually getting a knockout. And Nick spun the fucking tables on him and ended up knocking him the fuck out in spectacular fashion. I'm sure everyone, at least the longtime fans have seen it and know exactly what I'm talking about. The Nick Diaz Robbie Lawler knockout. And Robbie actually gets knocked out, and the referee stops the fight, goes to stand up and try to fight Nick again, but he falls backwards and falls into the cage and falls down again, and it's absolutely hysterical. You can look on YouTube, Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. You can just watch the entire fight for yourself and enjoy a good laugh. I feel like Robbie Lawler's going to bring the heat to Rory MacDonald. His last fight was the most boring fight I've ever seen in my life against Jake Ellenberger. Jake Ellenberger did nothing in that fight. When I say he did nothing, I don't mean he threw like some shots and missed, like a 1-2, 1-2-3, like a body that could caught him with the body shot. I heard it. He hit him with nothing. I think he threw 0 strikes. I really do. I honestly believe that in the fight, he threw 0 strikes against Rory MacDonald. Rory MacDonald, however, did throw like 6 or 7 jabs, and this went on for fucking 15 minutes. Now, Rory MacDonald, don't get me wrong, I've seen him tear shit up. I mean, he hurt BJ Penn so bad that it's hard to watch BJ Penn, especially how much respect I have for the prodigy. It was tough to watch. He brutalized BJ's ribcage pretty fucking bad in his face. He's a huge welterweight. He's a top prospect. He's going to have to fight GSP Sunday, saying that he gets through Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler started as an underdog, came back to the UFC after years out of the organization. He fought for Strikeforce. Beat a bunch of guys in Strikeforce. Jake Shields actually was one guy to defeat him. He had his ups and downs in his career. Steps back into the cage against Josh Koscheck as a 4.5-to-1 underdog and ends up getting the knockout. And he did the exact same as in his last outing. And I'm not quite sure who it is. And as soon as I see him, I feel like an ass. No reason why. It took me so long to remember who it was that he knocked the shit out of. It's a guy that's very forgettable. I'm just being a dick today. Stefan Struve's got a heart condition, so that's my excuse for being a dick. He beat up Bobby Volker. Ended up actually head kick knockout in the second round. And seeing Robbie Lawler put all of his technique together, his takedowns looked fantastic. His takedown defense was impeccable. Perfect. His striking was dead point, pinpoint accuracy, megaton power, bombs of uppercuts, eventually landing a head kick on Bobby Volker. Broke his nose early on the first round. The second round just landed the exact same head kick and shut the fucking lights off, and followed up with some mean ground and pound. Please search that fight as well. That fight's always worth a watch. So Robbie Lawler has been nothing but just ripping fucking through the welterweight division since he's been back to the UFC. Now they're really putting him to the test and giving him the hottest prospect out there, this young man, Rory Waterboy MacDonald. And Rory MacDonald, he fight, his trainers for Rasa Hobby. He trains a TriStar right up there with George St-Pierre. He considers George St-Pierre his idol, his icon. But you know what, man? They're in the same weight class. And face it, I don't like the guy. He has such a creepy serial killer type of vibe to him, but he's fucking good. He's very good. He's very, very good. The only blemish on his record belongs to Carlos Condit, and that's even controversial. He was actually losing the fight, Condit was, up until the third round. In the third round, Condit, he got a sweep and just laid in Rory MacDonald's half guard and just rained down shots. But it didn't look like the shots were devastating enough to put him out. And they didn't put him out. The referee actually ended up stopping it, but there was no protest from Rory. Rory MacDonald got up and shook Carlos Condit's hand and has been calling for a rematch ever since. Not quite sure why that rematch hasn't happened yet, but this week is the Carlos Condit Campman 2 fight, the rematch. Super stoked for that. Super stoked for UFC 167. GSP's finally going to get his belt taken. I feel like Johnny Hendricks has way too much in that left. Way too much for him to handle. If Matt Serra can land, 2 shots, 2 hooks on George St-Pierre and rattle him that bad, since then, that was UFC 69. Since then, the biggest upset, one of them, in UFC history, Chris Weidman, Anderson Silva being number 1 now. Matt Serra owned the biggest upset in UFC history when he upset George St-Pierre as a 8-1 underdog by knockout. He took a couple of hooks and he lost his equilibrium, fell backwards, followed up with some ground and pound. And actually, if you look at the video, and I've seen it a trillion times, you can see George roll to his side and tap. So he actually did tap out due to strikes. That's not how they have it officially. They have it as a TKO, referee stoppage, but I did see George tap. There's no doubt about it. George got caught. It was not his day. He got caught. Matt Serra said he was going to shock the world, and he did it. And, Rory MacDonald, this guy is world class in every area. There's no area where he has holes or weaknesses in at all, none whatsoever. Again, he's super strong. He's young. He's hungry. He was brought up the right way. He was brought up not in wrestling or karate or just boxing. He was brought up in mixed martial arts. He was brought up in all of the aspects, learning them all at the same time and learning how to put them together, which makes him a scary, scary young man. And along with that fucking personality, that Jeffrey Dahmer type of personality freaks me out. So I'm not a huge fan, but I am a fan of anyone that's been around since 2002, that, that wore the black gloves, didn't say UFC, they were just fucking black with some white tape around them. For all I know, they could have a fucking roll of quarters inside of them. There was no one to sign off on the gloves. And he's been around since back then, and he was 21 years old when he fought Nick Diaz. He's in his 30s now, and he's rocking people, and he's rocking people that are in the top 10. He came to the UFC for a reason, and he came for a vengeance. He's on his way for a title shot, and Rory MacDonald's in his way. I don't see him being afraid of Rory MacDonald one bit, but looking at their styles, they clash a lot because Robbie will throw caution to the wind and wing some deadly shots. He has fucking bricks for hands. Rory MacDonald's very technically sound. He will wait. He's patient. He has a fantastic ground game in which you mix wrestling and jiu-jitsu. He will submit you. He will sweep you. And if you watch his devastating defeat over my boy Nate Diaz, he actually suplexed Nate Diaz 3 times in a row. Like he was a rag doll, no problem. It was actually a 10-8 round. Nate, he could have broke his neck on any one of those throws. I mean, he really beat the shit out of him. And then, that would probably be the co-main event. Rory MacDonald, Robbie Lawler, the main event, GSP and Johnny Hendricks. And what I'm seeing is week after week after week, Johnny Hendricks is actually becoming more and more of an underdog. And I don't know why, because George St-Pierre is boring as shit. George St-Pierre is boring as shit. Is anyone out there still a George St-Pierre fan? If you are, please comment and tell me why. Tell me why you're a George St-Pierre fan. Tell me why you think that George St-Pierre tell me what you like about watching George St-Pierre fight, because I'm